Hello, guys, and welcome to another Costa Rican Vacations live webinar from where I am here in San Jose, Costa Rica. Joining us today, two of our very top travel planners, Jordan Gill. Jordan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good. Thanks, Jordan. Remind us where you're located here in Costa Rica.
I live in Uvita, which is in the southern central Pacific zone.
Fantastic. Looks nice and sunny behind you.
It is, thankfully.
Very, very nice.
Different than
And
yesterday.
there you go. And Caitlin Summer. Caitlin, you're joining us once more as well. Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Adam. Thank you.
Good stuff. And Caitlin, whereabouts do we find you this morning?
I am near the Arenal volcano, and it is also quite bright out today, but cloudy.
Very good. Very, very nice. Guys, well, thank you very much for joining me live as we try and do every single month. San Jose, Uvita, Arenal, we're covering most of the country right there. Today, guys, we've got a great topic for you, which is covering the best 7-day itinerary vacation plan that is kind of more off the beaten path, not your typical Guanacaste, Manuel Antonio, or even Arenal. Maybe you're coming back to Costa Rica for a second visit and you want to see something a little bit different, or perhaps you're a really savvy traveler and you're looking to avoid crowds. We're going to cover some of the basic, most important areas that we think you guys will love that are not as popular, a little bit more off the beaten path. And we're going to cover a lot of great questions: where you should explore, what are the best boutique eco lodges around the country, is it safe to drive yourself, is it safe to drive around if you're exploring off these beaten paths in a car, but also talking about maybe cuisine, a bit more of the authentic Costa Rica side as well. As ever, after about 45 minutes, we're going to have a live questions and answers session as well with Jordan and Caitlin. So please don't forget to get your questions into us so we can actually address those live at the end. And they don't have to be related at all to what we're discussing. They can be anything about Costa Rica whatsoever. So please let us know and we will get back to you. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, and you want to discuss more about this webinar, please let us know in the description box below and we will get straight back to you. Okay, so without further ado, let's get this amazing live webinar started. As ever, Wendy's helping me in the background. I'm going to be providing you guys with some great links via YouTube videos and some of our essential Costa Rican Vacations web pages if you want more information on the subjects we're discussing today. So Jordan, let's get kicked off. We've got a load of questions here. There's an awful lot to do in Costa Rica, especially if you're coming back from a second or third time. You could be a couple. You could be maybe a special honeymoon. It could be a group trip or even a family. There's a lot of different audience types as well. But when it comes to exploring hidden beaches, can you name a couple of secret spots in Costa Rica that you really like, you know well, and maybe are not as popular as some of the more standard ones? Maybe people want to avoid the crowds. Where should they go?
Yeah. So when a lot of people think about Costa Rican beaches, they immediately think of Guanacaste, which is the North Pacific part of the country. And there are some amazing beaches up there, especially for surfing. And that's where kind of like the big all-inclusives are and some of the more focusing on the beachfront resorts. However, that's if you've already been there or if you're looking for something a little bit more off the beaten path and also in the rainforest, because Guanacaste is not really the rainforest, it's a dry tropical forest. So it doesn't really have that lush green jungly feeling that people think of when it comes to Costa Rica. So I would actually, down where I live is obviously I'm partial, but the areas of Dominical, that's a really cute little beach town. It's got really great waves for surfing. Not necessarily for beginners, but there's in this whole region, there's Dominical and Uvita, which are about 20 minutes from each other. And there are tons of beaches in that spans of roadway on the Costanera, and including the Marina Ballena National Park, which is the beach in Uvita, which if you've seen the whale's tail, that a lot of people talk about, that is the Marina Ballena National Park. That is the beach. So I would say between Avita's National Park and also the Dominical surfing waves, those are two really great secret beach spots. It's not secret, but lesser known beach spots that are definitely worth exploring. They are darker sands, so people who are looking for that like white sand, pristine, tropical, crystal blue waters, You're not going to get that, but you're going to get really, really beautiful dark sand beaches. You've got the scarlet macaws and the toucans in the tree. So it's a really special part of the country, and so that would be my recommendation if you've already done Guanacaste, or if you want something a little bit more tropical, lush, and wildlife focused too.
Yeah, that's a really nice spot. And I know that if perhaps you've been to Manuel Antonio before and you've already done the 3 hour drive and are willing to drive maybe an extra 45 minutes, maybe 4 hours, depending on traffic, to get to
Exactly.
Dominical or Vita, you do get that difference of meet the rainforest and the mountains, meet the dark sand beaches really, really quickly. So a lot more tropical experience. And also, Avita, like you mentioned, because it's such a famous national park, when the tide goes out, it's massive. So you really feel like you've got a lot of space, and it's not particularly, you're certainly not going to see like people right next to you sunbathing. Would that be fair?
Yeah, and then also important to note about the park is that there's no development in there. So there's no, if you really want untouched beaches, there's not development, there's no houses, there's no condos, there's no beach bars. It's a really, really untouched beach experience
Yeah,
in the park specifically. If you want the beach bars and the things, you have that in Dominical, which is right next
yeah,
door. So they're both very, very different experiences, but close by. That's why it's a really cool region, because you can sort of find a beach for of everyone. The other one
yeah.
last I would say would be Playa Ventanas, which is down near Ojochal. And they've got some really cool caves that go all the way from the beach through these mountains and open up to the ocean. So you can walk
Nice.
into the caves and see the waves like crashing through. It's a really cool area. We actually have a tour that goes from Manuel Antonio that goes to 3 different waterfalls and also makes a stop at Playa Ventanas. So it's a really cool tour.
That's a nice piece of information. So perhaps maybe you are coming the first time, you're going back to Manuel Antonio. You do have the option of doing a tour to these more secluded areas if you
Yeah,
want to spend a
it's
day avoiding
close.
the crowds.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Got some great tours in that area. And even if you wanted to, do a couple days there from Manuel Antonio, there's lots of options.
Yeah, awesome. Caitlin, I wanted to ask you, so Jordan just mentioned that if you've been to Guanacaste and now you're wanting something a bit more tropical, but maybe you've come to Costa Rica for the first time, and we're certainly going to touch on the Caribbean coast in a minute. But before I jump over to the Caribbean, staying on the Pacific side, if you are going to Guanacaste and you don't particularly want a 5-star resort on one of the more traditional beaches, Tamarindo, Flamingo, Papagayo, are there any beaches in Guanacaste that are slightly less popular that you recommend?
Yeah, so um, recently, earlier this year, had the privilege of exploring the Nicoya Peninsula area a little bit more than I had in the past, and discovered San Juanillo. Beautiful, beautiful beach. Doesn't have a lot of houses and bars and restaurants similar to what Jordan was saying. It's there are actually, it's kind of cool because there are some local houses nearby that have been, you can tell they've been there. They were first. So they have been there, and it's kind of cool to see like their lifestyle and also have that beach there. The beach is going to be white sand, pristine blue water, but what's unique about it is that it has a lot of rock formations, and so you can go out and explore like into the sea when the tide is low and see the water and the waves crash up on these huge black rocks. And it has like a cove, so you can do like either side, or you can stand in the middle and see like both sides of the ocean that's split between this huge like rock formation. So um yeah, that beach is really cool. That's definitely more unique for sure than the typical Guana beaches.
What was the
In
what was the name of that beach again?
San Juanillo,
San Juanillo. Perfect.
uh,
I will put it
in
in the chat
Nicoya.
because it
It's
is a good.
often it's often visited if you're going to be staying in like the Nosara area.
Aha.
You can visit it from Nosara. It's about 30 minutes from Nosara. Um, there's not a lot of like hotels and huge resorts over there, so the beaches stay really clean and really pristine. Um, Other than that, I would say, if you're into some adventure beach experiences, then in that same region, but maybe a little bit further down south, like going towards the tip of the Nicoya Peninsula, you can hike to Cabo Blanco.
Mm.
Cabo Blanco is like a cool hike through the jungle, and then it spits you out into this beach where there's nobody around. It kind of feels like you're in an episode of Lost. Um,
Aha.
so that was really cool, and I remember it's one of my best memories. My husband and I explored it for the first time on our own, and we got up there, and there was nobody there, and we just ended up taking a nap on the beach. It was like our private beach. It was great.
Very nice. Two great suggestions, and I've put the name of San Juanillo in there and Nosada. So if you do want to visit the beach, you can check it out. That's a bit further down in Nicoya. And there are a couple of other spots if you are closer to the Liberia airport. Playa Penca is a good one where it's a bit more popular with locals, but it's also a light pink white sand, and not nearly as busy as something like Conchal or Flamingo. And even something like Playa Hermosa in the north, we have a beautiful boutique hotel there called Bosque del Mar. That never tends to be that busy. Maybe more popular with locals. So yeah, Guanacaste, a great spot. Again, more popular. And as Jordan mentioned, if you want to go a bit further down the coast, you've got the Ovita and Dominical towns as well, which offer great access depending on surfing, wildlife watching. And for sure, those crowd avoiding beaches, as you just mentioned, Caitlin, yeah, they sound really exciting. And that's something to even explore on your own. But we'll be more than happy to help you guys out.
And an
So
added note on the Bosque del Mar hotel.
yeah,
That's a really, really special hotel. I feel like it's a bit underrated by most, but if you're looking for a beach destination, say you only have like 5 days to spare, you're going into Liberia Airport, you need somewhere like even less than an hour, like 35 minutes. Bosque de Mar is super, super great. It's a very cute boutique hotel that gives you like a very rainforesty tropical experience. Like the hotel property is stunning, super like just I mean it's just super lush and green, but then you have Hermosa Beach right there, and it like Adam said, it's very rarely crowded. It's very wide, and if you want to have like that bar scene or the more lively atmosphere, you could just head on over to Coco next door. It's like less than 10 minutes away. So
so
Bosque de
yeah,
Mar is super special.
really true. I will share the Bosque de Var video with you shortly in the chat. And it is nice because you're right there on the beach front. And it does feel like you're a little bit more isolated compared to other areas that are a little bit more popular. And we are going to be talking a lot today about eco lodges and boutique spots that are a bit more off the beaten path. So there you guys can check it out if you want to learn a little bit more. As I did mention, when talking about beaches, Jordan's already discussed a little bit on the Pacific side or Central Pacific further down. Caitlin, I know you've got a lot of experience with the Caribbean side, and it's something that we love to sell, especially if you're traveling in what is usually our green season, September, October, November, tends to be slightly drier at this time of the year on our Caribbean side. Would you say that the Caribbean coast is worth visiting for a 1 week vacation? How would you combine it, and where do you go for the beach experience?
Yeah, totally. I think that the Caribbean, um, if expectations are set, it can be a really unique and special experience because it is so different than the Pacific Coast. Vibe wise, cultural wise, food, everything is different. It's like a whole nother world. Um, um, it's very easy to combine it with something inland nature wise, whether that be La Fortuna or Monteverde or somewhere in between or outside San Jose in the mountains. Like it's very easy to do so. Um, ideally, if how I would recommend it to kind of get the best of both worlds is to do like 3 nights inland somewhere like La Fortuna or Monteverde so you get those highlights, and then or stay closer to San Jose. But the thing with the Puerto Viejo is it's quite far away. It's remote. So from La Fortuna, you can expect 5 to 6 hour drive. It is kind of a cool drive. There's lots of things to see on the way. But for those who want to capitalize on your time more and don't mind a small jumper flight, then you can take a direct flight from San Jose to Limon, which is like 25-30 minute flight, and then a quick hour drive down the coast and you're in Puerto Viejo. Um, the area of the Caribbean, it is so different and so special because first of all, the culture is Afro-Caribbean. So they have a lot of different traditions, and the food is going to be more spicy coconut based things. So most of Costa Rica, for example, um, we have gallo pinto, which is rice and beans mixed together. But over there, they have what is called rice and beans. Like just that's the name, rice and beans. And if it's rice and beans, then it is white rice, red beans, and coconut, and a little bit of spice. Um, so it's just really interesting. The nightlife there is not as it's more like lively, but could be casual, but could be um super intense if you want it to be. Like it kind of just depends. Like it's I don't know. I kind of just rambling at this point because it's so different. It's so unique. But you could
Yep.
definitely spend some time over there, and there is a lot of Cahuta National Park is one of the best places to snorkel. It has like that golden sand and the blue clear water. Then you have Manzanillo, which is not a national park, more of a reserve that is like raw jungle that you have access to all these different like beach spots, and it's again super golden sand and blue water, lots of wildlife. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like everything you just mentioned is very true. It's a beautiful spot to visit if you are going back, at least for the second time. A lot of people tend to overlook it the first time and compare it to Guanacaste or Mount Antonio just because of the location, like you mentioned, around 5 hours drive in most of the year from San Jose. But it is quite isolated. You have the town of Cahuita first. Like you mentioned, you do have a beautiful national park, which is really accessible. And it's one of the only places where you actually have coral reefs. So if you do like snorkeling or even diving, there's a couple of spots you can get in the water and it's beautiful. There's a couple of places for surfing, but again, it's really underdeveloped compared to the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. And as Kate says, the amount of authentic cultural vibes, more on the Afro-Caribbean side, is going to be really rich. So expect tasty food. Puerto Viejo is a much bigger town, 10 minutes down the road from Cahuita, and there you can find a lovely selection of beaches. Beachfront is the town and a lot of properties, smaller boutique options, all the way down to Manzanillo, as you mentioned. So there's a bunch of tours as well, but you do have to plan well. I agree with you, Kate. Maybe 3 nights inland in the central region, could be the volcano, could be maybe a cloud forest, and then head to the beach to combine it well and stay for at least 4 nights so you can actually enjoy some of that.
Yeah,
We've
I can jump in real quick. I just
go
add
for it.
one other thing about the Caribbean side. Kate was great talking about Puerto Viejo, which is by far the best beach destination on the Caribbean. It is far down there, but for the other the two, like if you want to do 2 or 3 days before going to the beach, there's also the other highlight on the Caribbean side is Tortuguero, which is another national park, which is the northern part of the Caribbean, which is it's similar to kind of like the vibe of the Osa Peninsula, where it's extremely remote and kind of difficult to get there logistically. But if you're really looking for off the beaten path and you want to do something very special, that's where the turtles are famous. And so you can easily pair, do 3 nights in Tortuguero and then head down further south to do the beach time at in Puerto Viejo. That's a really good combination. Another option on the way there is if you're looking for some adventure. There's an amazing eco lodge, which we'll touch on later, the Pequari Lodge, which, or even you could even do it as a day trip as rafting. You can raft the Pequari River from San Jose down toward the Caribbean side, and that is the best rafting river in the country, arguably, but I would say so. And then you can actually stay overnight at this lodge, which is halfway, and you raft in, raft out. A lot of people do that, and then they head to Puerto Viejo, finish their trip, and fly back to San Jose. So I would say, yeah, easily you could do a week on the Caribbean side, Puerto Viejo 4 nights, and then either Tortuguero for 2 or 3, and Pequari Lodge or Pequari Lodge for 2, 3 nights, and that would be a really good itinerary.
That
Yeah, and
sounds great.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jordan, because going back to what she said, logistically a little bit difficult. Like initially, like if you plan it right, it's not as like if you have the help of us, it's not that complicated. Because I think Jordan would agree. Ideally, you would arrive into Costa Rica and stay your first night in San Jose, and then from there, it's quick, 20-minute flight from San Jose to Tortuguero, Tortuguero to Limon, another 20-minute flight. So if you don't mind those little bitty flights, it's really short and quick and easy to maneuver. And then going back to San Jose, you can also hop on a flight. And then you have that adventure option. If you rather stick to land, then go through Pequari and making your way down to the Caribbean is really, really cool. So
The last thing I'll notice just on the Caribbean, especially for Tortuguero, is that things book up really far in advance for that area because there's not a lot available. They're very small little hotels. So if you are looking to come For a last minute trip, it's probably going to be tough. But if you plan, 6 months or further in advance, that's when you're going to have the best options. So.
Yeah, really, really great information. I've posted a couple of links there for you guys if you are interested, because yeah, Jordan, you make a really good point about never dismissing Tortuguero. Some people have the misconceived idea that you can go there for the beaches. This is not a beach destination. You can't swim there. A lot of sharks, a lot of crocodiles. This is where you go if you are really keen on wildlife, specifically turtle nesting and seeing the actual turtles coming out and actually make their way to the sea at the right time of year. Because of how isolated it is, as Kate said, you can fly from San Jose if you've just arrived. But what is quite common, especially with European travelers, you come into San Jose, you stay one night, you get picked up early in the morning, you actually do a ground transportation to a local farm. And from there, you take the boat all the way up to the hotels inside the canals at Tortuguero. And you usually stay there for 2 or 3 nights before your vacation continues. If you're staying in the country for 2 weeks, it's a great way to start to see something that really is quite unique. And if it is shorter, as you mentioned, Jordan, it combines well with further down the coast, Puerto Viejo and Cahuita, where you can actually enjoy a beach vacation. But yeah, don't mix up Tortuguero for the beach. That's wholly, isolated, small community, incredible wildlife, beautiful national park, and very commonly on the canals, the only real big canals that you find here in Costa Rica. Yeah, fantastic advice and not to be missed. We are going to touch on Pecuary, no doubt. Guys, if you have any questions for us, we do have a Q&A session coming in around 20-25 minutes. Please let us know in the Zoom chat box. You can open it up. Again, ask us anything you like and we'll get back to you live on air. Jordan, I did want to ask you something about lesser known national parks. We've discussed the Tortuguero National Park. We've touched on Cahuita. You've already mentioned the Ovita National Park, really, really close by. If someone is looking for slightly more incredible nature, they don't want to be slammed. The Arenal Volcano National Park, even the Monteverde Biological Reserve is really popular. Of course, Mount Antonio, the most popular one in the country. Where are some of the national parks I might look that are slightly more expansive, technically off the beaten path, but also great for wildlife?
Yes, two that come to mind immediately. Well, first is if we got a lot of bird watchers, and Costa Rica has like some ridiculous number. I don't know. It's like 900. I don't even know how many species of birds. It's crazy how many birds are in Costa Rica. If you're bird people, then the other cloud forest that we have Monteverde, but then there's also another cloud forest lesser known called San Gerardo de Dota. And that is an amazing spot. And I believe it's a national park. Is that correct? It's a national park up there, or a reserve at least.
Area, yep.
Yeah. And that's the other part of the country where you can see the elusive quetzal birds, which is always a bird watcher's like bucket list. That area is beautiful. I think it's at 9,000 feet. It's at really high elevation, so it's cold up there. So it's the only part of Costa Rica where you're going to actually need a sweater. It is chilly up there. It's fantastic for bird watching. Not as much of the larger mammals that you think about when you think of Costa Rica, but for birds, it's phenomenal. And it's only a 2 hour and change drive to the coast. So you can drop 9,000 elevation feet and get there and get to the beach and be 95 degrees within 2 hours. So it's pretty cool. I would say definitely there's great hiking up there. Again, birds, hiking, cloud forest, really, really quiet, very relaxing, cooler temperatures. I would say Dota is definitely a highlight. And then if you just want sheer volume of animals and just you have your mind blown, the Corcovado National Park on the Osa Peninsula is absolutely insane, because that you have to go with a guide. You can't just show up and go into that park like you can in Mount Antonio or most of the other national parks. You have to go with a guide. It is extremely remote. You have to take a boat into most of the locations. That's where you're gonna, there are puma sightings, there are tapirs, there are jaguar. It's the most biodiverse part of the country and the planet. So you're going to see a ton of wildlife. You can see all four types of monkeys in Costa Rica in that region. You won't go more than 5 minutes without seeing something awesome. It's really one of those things where you're like, whoa, is this all happening? Like, where am I?
Yeah.
And you feel like you're in Ferngully or something. But there's nobody there, because it's not like you're going to see crowds of people. It's very, very, very well protected, very untouched. And for wildlife, hands down, the best part of Costa Rica for sure. It is on the more expensive side to stay in that region, so it is one of those things that a lot of people want to go and they want to go as a day trip. There are options to do it as a day trip from places like Uvita, but it's a very long day. So I recommend, spending some time on the OSA if it's in the budget and if it's something that if you're interested in doing some more off the beaten path and being a little bit out there, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I know I'm approaching 20 years now in Costa Rica, and when I first went there, I always describe the place as the one place you can see everything in Costa Rica just in the one place, in
Yeah.
terms of the amount of wildlife and the nature and just the complete immersion into it. And even now, so long later, every time I go back there, it's always really exciting. You made a really good point that it's not the most economic place to get to. Ideally, you need to take a domestic flight, whether you're flying to the Drake Bay side or the other side of Puerto Jimenez. It is incredible, and I think because it's become so well known in the country, Nat Geo, 5% of all biodiversity on the planet. I've shared a link here with you. I think people think that it's really popular, and because of its location, you never feel like it's crowded. I think that's fair, right? I mean, it's
Oh
always,
yeah, no, you'll never see another person in the park usually when you're in
yeah,
there. You're
it is tough. And Jordan, if I wanted to stay, what are your maybe two or three favorite options in terms of eco lodges that we promote?
Yeah, so eco lodges, there's two main spots on the Osa, well, three main spots on the Osa Peninsula. You've got Drake Bay, which is on the Pacific side of the peninsula. That's going to be great if you could take a boat there from Sierpe, so it's good. You could actually pair that really nicely with Manuel Antonio or other parts of the country. There's also an airport there. In Drake Bay, there are two lodges that stand out. There's Aguila de Osa, which is very close to town. You can walk to Drake Bay on the path through the jungle. That one is going to be, pretty rustic, but also really, high-end luxury, but also it's kind of an oxymoron, but it's got more of this like rustic feel. There's no air conditioning. There's no like pool. But it's got, it's high end, but it's also very, very it's got like an authentic feel. If you want something a little bit even higher end, a little bit more comfort, there is down the path a little bit further, about 10 minutes, is I love Copa de Arbol, which is they've got a pool, they've got a few rooms with air conditioning. It's a little bit more comfortable, it's a little bit swankier. All of these places are meal inclusive too because of the remote nature. So I would say in Drake Bay, those two are my definite go-tos. If you are looking for something a little bit more convenient, not necessarily eco lodge, something a little bit more comfortable, over in Puerto Jimenez, which is on the Gulf side, in the Gulf of Dulce, on the other side of the peninsula, there's a really great. It's technically a Hilton property, but don't put you off on this. It's called Botanica. It's a boutique. It's I don't know how you describe it. It's like a boutique version of a resort. It's fairly new, and they've done an amazing job of really working with the natural ecosystem. It's right next to the Puerto Jimenez airstrip, so for something that's a really easy in out of the OSA, that's a really good spot too. Their rooms are a little bit more affordable than some of these big eco lodges. Not big eco, sorry, some of these eco lodges that are really high end and hard to get to. So that's another good option for if anyone might be on a tighter budget but wants to get to that region. That is another great option. And then all the way at the tippy bottom is in the Cabo Matapalo, which is amazing, the very famous surf break for experienced surfers. And that's where you're going to get your really, really, really high end, like the Lapa Rios Eco Lodge, which is absolutely mind blowing, beautiful up there. It's hard to touch that in terms of luxury on the Osa Peninsula, and that is for me that's the spot where you can go for a 5-minute hike and you'll see all four monkeys, you'll see all of the just existing there. So I would say those three spots are the key. But also the other thing, accessibility to the park itself, to Corcovado, I would say Drake Bay, because that's going to be the easiest on that side. You get it picked up on a boat at like Copa de Arbol. They take you to the national park. It's also very accessible to Caño Island Biological Reserve if you are interested in scuba diving. It's the best scuba diving in the mainland of Costa Rica. And also snorkeling. There's some snorkeling options too, but great for diving. So yeah, I love it down there.
There you go. I think just listening to you speak, you can tell how passionate you are, because
I
you've
love
covered
it.
all of the highlights. I've added a bunch of links for Aguila de Osa, Copa de Arbol, if you want the slightly more luxurious option with AC. La Rios is incredible. It's been around for 25 years. Yeah, they've constantly added to it. And now you've got private pools on the decks with these incredible views of the ocean right in the rainforest, primary rainforest. So yeah, no, great summary, Jordan. It's hard to better that. Kate, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to the OSA, do you find that you add that product in, combining it with the Arenal volcano to make, the adventure, and then people want to go? Or does it tend to be people who come back for the second time? Or do a lot of people just go to the OSA, one night in San Jose, fly to the OSA, stay for 5 nights, fly back to San Jose and depart? Do you combine it? And is it only, combined with 14-day vacation packages? What is common for you?
Yeah, so definitely more of a second trip destination for most people. Can you hear me okay? Just making sure. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely more of a second trip, because that first trip is usually to hit the highlights, the volcano, the beach, maybe the cloud forest. And then the second trip is like you feel more comfortable with Costa Rica, and so you want to go off the beaten path. So definitely a second trip thing. But in terms of combining it, I have all 3 options you just mentioned. I have done all 3 of those, and I think it totally depends on the traveler. So for those who want to experience the OSA with the least amount of travel, it's definitely a fly into San Jose, stay 1 night, and then take a flight over and stay in the OSA for minimum of 4 nights, ideally 5. Why? Because there is so much to do there, and it's such a special place that you really want to experience all that you can while you're there. And the adventure getting there is worth the time to stay there a little longer. You can definitely do 3 nights, but I always think that people are selling themselves short if they only do 3 nights in the OSA.
Yeah.
And then, so if you want to combine an additional place with OSA, whether it's your first or second time, and have that adventure, then there's 2 ways we could go about it. You don't mind a little extra travel time / you do have extra time to spare, you could definitely hit up La Fortuna, where the Arna volcano is, and do all the adventure stuff there. And then we can, so there's so many ways, right? So if you can go back to San Jose, stay a night, then fly over to Copa. You can take a private charter all the way to Drake. That is the most expensive option, and not many people do that, but it is there. It's available. Or you can or you can go to Manuel Antonio. So you can drive there, or you can take a flight. The flight is very reasonable. Not yeah, so a flight over to Manuel Antonio and stay 1 night or even 2 nights, like a stopover before you go to OSA, because Manuel Antonio is also very beautiful, very wildlife heavy. And then drive to Sierpe, which is the little town, about 2 hours from Manuel Antonio, maybe a little bit less. And then from there, you actually would boat into the OSA. So instead of flying into the OSA, you boat in, which is an adventure in itself. And you see lots of wildlife along the way, and you boat down the Sierpe River and get spit out into the ocean. And then you take another boat around into the boat. So it's really, really cool. And then you just fly back to San Jose. So there's a lot of different ways to get to the OSA. It really all depends on like how much time you have, how comfortable you are with travel, and budget too, right?
Yep.
I would say the most budget friendly way to combine OSA plus a second destination would probably, depending on the season, would probably be going back to San Jose and staying like a night at a basic hotel like Hampton or
Yeah.
something
It's really
like
important
that.
to mention that flying domestically in Costa Rica doesn't break the bank. It tends to be a lot cheaper, and it's a very easy way to get around. As you mentioned, there's a number of ways to get into the OSA depending on where you're staying, but flying in and out certainly saves an awful lot of ground time, and will generally be the recommendation, I would imagine, for most of our travel planners, as you guys mentioned. But yeah, it is an amazing place if you can combine it, or if you are just staying there for a little bit longer. Good stuff. I know we've got a little bit more time here. We've got a question here from Anonymous, but it's listed iPhone. I don't think iPhone responded, but we will try and get back. I think you're looking for some recommendations. We are more than happy to help any vacations planned. If you do want to start booking your vacation, we can put a quote together just so you can have a look, and Jordan or Kate will be more than happy to help you out. A couple more essential questions here that I want to cover. Jordan, we've discussed a couple of different eco lodges. We've touched on, you know, where you're going down in Osa. But there's a question here that kind of comes up that if someone wanted to plan a 7-day itinerary that's kind of focused on wildlife, but not necessarily Manuel Antonio, but they've heard of Manuel Antonio, we've obviously touched on the Osa. So is there somewhere else that you can go, or how do you plan a vacation, maybe in the Central Valley, that it kind of focuses on wildlife? And what are a couple of your favorite boutique hotels or lodges in those areas that might match up well for a wildlife-based getaway?
Yeah, well, actually, one of my favorite properties is actually it's a little bit south of Manuel Antonio, and it's very unique because it's kind of a glamping situation in the middle of the rainforest. It's called Rafiki Safari Lodge. It is not a luxury property by any means, but it is completely immersed in the jungle, and it's also directly on the Savegre River. So if you're into rafting, you can raft right from there too. They've got tons of trails, waterfalls, hanging bridges, things nearby. And that is a really great spot for just, you're so immersed and there's nothing else around you that you're going to see wildlife because it's, you know, you're in the middle of their natural habitat. It's not a national park where they're used to people. It's and that's a really unique experience. It's affordable too. It's not a super high-end luxury resort. It's easy to get to. You don't need a 4x4. It's kind of on the way between. It's a little bit further south of Manuel Antonio, but not completely out of the realm of where you're going. It's also pairs really well with the San Gerardo de Dota, which I was talking about, the cloud forest. So I like to pair those together. You could go to San Gerardo first or go to Rafiki first and then go to get cooler after that because it's hot at Rafiki. And then there's also a really great place. It's called Villas Alturas. It's in between Dominical and Uvita. They have an amazing wildlife sanctuary there. That's a rescue center. And they have, you know, they rehab animals, release them into the wild if they can. And it's also a place you can visit there as you stay there. It's got epic views of the ocean. So you could, you know, 7 days to do all three would be a little bit tight, but it's doable. But and then they're also closer to the beach there. So that little loop would be kind of my recommendation, especially for wildlife, and then places that are not going to be crowded and not going to be your normal tourist circuit. That would be probably what I would do.
Fantastic. It's nice to hear you're talking about really small off the beaten path, like obviously eco lodges, but Rafiki, okay, as it is called Rafiki Safari Lodge, is nearly a safari style, one of the first ones in Costa Rica, where you can experience incredible wildlife because of its location, but also a great amount of tours on site, certainly not breaking the bank. And there are more of these kind of jungle safari boutique properties that are popping up. You have the more luxurious ones in Arenal, of course, like the Nyada tented camp, super high end, but Rafiki is maybe 10% of that per night. And then even the newer one, as I think mentioned a couple of times now, Toku Tent Camp in the Cañon Negro Wildlife Refuge in the north of the country. So those kind of experiences are certainly off the beaten path. You do tend to be more isolated where you are. A lot of the time meals are included or have the option of being included because you are right on site. I'm going to share a link to a couple of these suggestions that Jordan just shared over here in the chat. And I know some of you guys are asking, do we send these URLs after the chat? So we will obviously edit this webinar and it will be on our YouTube page probably early next week. And all those URLs will actually be in the descriptions in the video. So please make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get all of these. I can try and put all of these in an email into Zoom post the webinar. It's not always easy, but let me see if I can do that for you guys. But yeah, try and bookmark some of these as it really is good information. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got maybe 5 more minutes here. There's a couple of great questions. I did want to throw one over to you, Caitlin, because obviously being in Arenal, you're very close to one of the more popular areas. We get a lot of questions about hidden waterfalls and hot springs in Costa Rica. So there's obviously a lot of very famous waterfalls that get really busy. La Fortuna in Arenal, Peace Lodge, one of the most photographed places in the country. When it comes to a couple of hidden waterfalls, what do you recommend? And is there any hot springs that you ever send your guests to that tend to be a bit quieter?
Yes, so really love this question. I'm a big waterfall person. You should see the list of waterfalls I have saved on my Google Maps, like over 150. So hidden waterfalls.
I think
Will
we've
always.
lost you, Caitlin. You might have to kind of
Okay.
attach the audio there.
Is that better?
Yep. There we
Maybe.
go.
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll talk a little louder. Okay. So for hidden waterfalls, my go-to is always. It's not near La Fortuna. Maybe 2 hours away. But it's always going to be the Bajos del Toro area. That area just has so many waterfalls, and they're all very local spots, and the access to them are very cheap. You wouldn't pay more than $10 to get in, and you get to see multiple waterfalls. Usually the hikes offer multiple waterfalls to see. A very lush, very primitive, untouched. It's a cooler temperatures over there, and it is just 90 minutes from San Jose. So it's like a great way to do like a shorter trip if you don't have too much time. If you love hiking, you love waterfalls, and you love off the beaten path. Now, when it comes to hot springs, you need to be closer to a volcano for that. There is the La Fortuna hot springs. There's a lot of different hot springs you can go to over there. I think that if you're in La Fortuna and you want a less visited hot spring, there is El Choyin as an option. It is a local spot, but actually recently, I believe at the beginning of this year, a local family created a hot spring facility around El Choyin, which is the natural river that runs through La Fortuna. And it doesn't have a lot of buzz quite yet. So like right now, that would be like my suggestion to go to a less visited hot springs. That's not a super touristy facility. And their prices are really great. And it's natural hot spring. Now,
Can you write that name in the chat? I can't quite hear the name.
Yeah,
of the hot spring.
El Choyin. El Choyin. Let me.
It's cool that we can certainly make great suggestions, even if it's not. There you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I will share this El Chorin.
Okay. Yeah, El Choyin, that's a good one. You can either go to the facilities and pay, it's really not that expensive, and have like facilities, a restaurant, lockers, showers, things like that. Or if you just want to go to the natural public river for free, you can just go there too. Usually early in the mornings and late afternoons is the best time when there's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
Outside La Fortuna, if you're in the Guanacaste area, there's a variety of hot springs. My personal favorite, although could be crowded depending on the time of the year, it would be up in the Rincon de la Vieja area, which is the national park, Volcano National Park over there. There's hot springs at Borinquen Lodge. There's hot springs at Hacienda Guachapulín area. My personal favorite, though, would be Hacienda Guachapulín, just because the hot springs itself look more natural and raw. And there's a nice hike to get to them, and there's different levels, and there's like a little hanging bridge, and depending on if you plan it right and go like first thing in the morning, and beat the mid-afternoon crowds, then you could potentially have it to yourself or just a few other people. I mean, I've been there 3 times and it never was super crowded. But we also go in the morning, right? So it's worth getting up, an extra hour early to go a little.
Very cool. It's exciting that you guys are talking about a lot of interesting properties. Tortuguero, Rafiki, Hacienda Guachapulín, Hot Springs. We're actually planning at Costa Rican Vacations to visit all of these properties in the coming 2 months before Christmas to get you guys brand new content and videos. So do make sure to follow along on Facebook and Instagram, and of course YouTube, so you can actually see some of the latest changes and developments at these properties and how they look. And you can obviously reach out to our travel planners who can hopefully get you guys set up to some of these places. I agree, Kate. I think Rincon de la Vieja is a good one. It does occasionally get busy, but there are smaller scattered hot springs around that are certainly a lot less busy than the popularity of the Arenal volcano, which, as we know, gets really, really busy. Okay, last couple of questions before we wrap up and answer a couple of questions that we've got here in the chat. It is a question, Jordan, that comes up quite a lot, but how safe is it to travel, more so when you are traveling off the beaten path? Perhaps you're renting a car, you're driving around, you've obviously booked with us, and you just want to still make sure that the areas you go to are safe. Is it still the same as the rest of the country? How do you answer that question?
Yeah, well, so I think I'm in a good position to answer that question. I've lived here as a single female for 9 years. So one of the reasons I moved to Costa Rica is because I felt very safe here. The people are lovely. You have to exercise common sense like you would anywhere in the world. Never walk alone at night, never leave your stuff unattended, that sort of thing. That being said, there's some safety elements that don't have to do with humans, and that would be, road conditions and weather and especially if you're renting a car, people you hear about Costa Rica driving, and the road conditions being, famously challenging. That's true. It's real true. I would say, Costa Ricans are lovely, not the greatest drivers, but it's kind of like the Wild West driving here. So if you're not used to driving in a foreign country, or reading signs in Spanish, or if you're expecting everyone to follow the rules on the road, you're gonna have to manage some expectations there. I'd say that's probably the most dangerous, is actually the driving conditions. Other than that, renting a car, as long as you're renting the correct vehicle for where you're going, most of the time, an SUV with high clearance, four-wheel drive is usually the go-to, just to make sure that you can clear potholes. You can use a four-wheel drive on some of these dirt roads, especially if you're going to off the beaten path locations. Getting the full insurance on the vehicle is absolutely not mandatory, but I personally would recommend it being mandatory, just because things can happen. Coconuts fall, there's roadkill, there's lots of stuff. So that being said, you get the full insurance on the car. Make sure that you know where you're going. Google Maps is not foolproof here. Waze is a little bit better for navigation, if you're driving yourself, but also use common sense. Sometimes it will try to send you places that you really should not be driving, so you need to use your eyeballs too. But the yeah, as long is, and then also with rental cars, never leave anything unattended, valuables in the car. That is probably the biggest issue we have with being unsafe is petty theft, in most of the time, not violent crime, but petty theft. So if you're leaving your valuables in the car and you go to the beach and everything's in your vehicle, there's a good chance that you might get broken into. Again, not confrontationally in a violent way, but you might, if you leave your stuff on the beach and go for a swim, your stuff might not be there when you get back. So opportunistic, petty theft is sometimes an issue. So using your brain when it comes to that, and, not going into sketchy places at night, parking your car in dark alleys, that sort of thing. But yeah, overall, very, very safe place to travel off the beaten path, as long as you have your wits about you and you do your research, and you're not getting up to things you shouldn't get up to, and you're ready for an adventure on the road. So
There you go. I mean, pretty great answer. And again, it's like just using common sense whenever you're traveling, right? As you mentioned with cars and leaving your stuff on the beach or in the back of a car, just common sense goes an awful long way. But also, if you're not renting a car and you do happen to use our own private transports, we will still take you to these places off the beaten path. And then you get to experience that wonderful isolation before you get this luxurious ride. So you don't even have to worry about the quality of the roads or the quality of the drivers.
And then you have the drivers staying with your things too. If you want to explore, you have
Yeah.
someone that's helping you. So it's definitely a good way to travel, is having the drivers are fantastic. So
Wonderful. Hey, so I want to ask you guys the final question to both of you. I would like you to give me 2 destinations each, and you're combining them for a 7-day off the beaten path itinerary. Caitlin, I'd love to know, what is your go-to itinerary? Perhaps this is a couple who are coming back to Costa Rica for the second time and they want 2 new places.
Ooh, that's a hard question.
Yes.
Okay. Costa Rica for a second time. Most likely their first time they went to La Fortuna Manuel Antonio or La Fortuna Guanacaste, more than likely.
Yeah.
So suggestion for a second trip would be to visit the cloud forest, whether that is Monteverde or San Gerardo de Tota. Bajos del Toro is a little bit of a cloud forest as well. So a cloud forest destination, and then coupling it with, because most people want rainforest and beach, so coupling it with either the OSA or the Caribbean, depending on the time of the year, because the Caribbean and the OSA don't have very opposite weather patterns. So
Yeah.
I think that would be my answer: cloud forest plus an off the beaten path beach destination, depending on the time of the year, OSA or the Caribbean.
Very good. those are great options, especially combined well. Jordan, if you had a family perhaps that were interested in the same kind of thing but had a week and they wanted to come back, would it differ much, your suggestion?
A family, depending on the ages of the kids,
Yeah.
definitely. Kids may not get as much out of the cloud forest and the Osa as older kids, teenagers, or adults, just because it's a little bit more relaxed. There's not as much in terms of like activities to do. It's more like the activity is the wildlife and the nature. And if kids need to be constantly entertained with something, they might find it a little bit more boring. But if you've got kids who are really into wildlife and really into that stuff, then yes, I think what Caitlin suggested is great. Yeah, the places that she mentioned, again, not going to have a lot of the beach focused. So
Yeah.
but I agree with that. I personally am not a beach person, so I love these locations. And I would say, yeah, I would echo. I would say probably Dota mixed with Osa. You could do that. And also, what's also cool about, if depending on the budget, you could even do with the hopper flights. You can go coast to coast if you were really a wildlife, like real enthusiastic about wildlife. You could do Tortuguero and then do a layover in San Jose, go to Osa, and you could go further full points on the other side of the country with a quick hopper flight layover in San Jose. Totally doable. So depending on what people are really looking at, and what their focus is, if it's beach or wildlife. But at wildlife, that would be a really good one. Or a full week on the Caribbean with Tortuguero and Puerto
Yeah.
Viejo.
Beautiful. Well, we've covered an awful lot of information. There is a lot of information in this messaging chat. So hopefully you guys can get access to that. I am, guys, going to put your information here in the chat. There is Jordan's email directly, and Caitlin's as well, email and webpage. So you can learn more about Jordan and Kate. Guys, thank you so much for running through all of those questions. We covered an awful lot today. We've only got a couple of questions in the chat today that I'm going to run through. I'm also going to quickly add our social media channels as well. So if you guys do want to follow us, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, please do click on those URLs so that you never miss a monthly episode or a monthly webinar, and you can actually get in touch with us directly and ask your questions. As mentioned, Anonymous was asking, we visited La Fortuna and Playa Hermosa last year, and I think they're interested in coming back to go fishing, potentially in Quepos or Manuel Antonio. They want to see waterfalls, caves, river tubing, hot springs, natural to swim in beach. I guess, Jordan, if I asked you, in terms of fishing, Quepos, Manuel Antonio, is there a preference? Where could you do waterfalls, caving, potentially river tubing and hot springs, and then the beach? I don't think you can do that. I think that's going to have to definitely be split.
Yeah, so the thing with the hot springs is that's really, pretty not necessarily, it's not specifically for La Fortuna, but that's definitely the best spot for it. And for fishing, I'm a member of the fishing team, and it's fishing in Costa Rica is amazing. And Quepos, which is also Manuel Antonio, that area, really, really good spot for fishing. Also, Manuel Antonio, the reason why it's so popular is that you could do so much in one spot. So
Yeah.
all of the things you listed, caves, the rafting, waterfalls,
Yeah.
fishing, wildlife, you can do all of that from Manuel Antonio. So I would actually say doing, Manuel Antonio / Capos for fishing and all of those
Yeah.
things. And then going either, down to where this region, Uvita, like the waterfall, Nayaka waterfall, epic. You could do that from Manuel Antonio as well. Or either, returning for the hot spring element, going back to La Fortuna, Arenal area at maybe a different place. Or if you wanted to drive a little bit more, you could do, the Rincon de la Vieja area for the hot springs and stuff. And then you could
Yeah.
make your way down the coast to Capos, Manuel Antonio. It's a little bit further drive, but it's doable if you've got a long enough trip and have one day of travel. So yeah, definitely great options in both those locations. The other thing that actually, the hot spring part with the river tubing, the thing that comes to mind is actually Rio Perdido. That's another one of our boutique
Yes.
properties.
Yeah.
Our boutique properties. It could be paired. You could do that. Again, it's not super close to Manuel Antonio Capos, but another place for fishing that's really good is the Playa Herradura Jaco area. So you could do like a Rio Perdido for they've got a hot river, like a hot springs river.
Yeah.
And you can also, and it's the two rivers. There's one that's hot springs river, and then there's another river that's regular water, and you can
Yeah.
tube on that one. So you could do
Yeah.
Rio Perdido and then partner it with something in either Manuel Antonio Capos or Jaco, Herradura area for fishing. That's what I would do.
How
I
did
mean,
I
this is
forget Rio Perdido? Thank you so much for mentioning. Yes, Rio Perdido is like the best. Favorite hot springs in all of Costa Rica.
isn't it interesting that even one question, it can bring up, like, several options, which is why it's so helpful to have a travel planner. But it is so important. Again, it could be 2 or 3 nights in the Arenal or Rio Perdido area for the hot springs, river tubing. And this person mentioned caves. You've got the Venado Caves, which is a great day tour from the Arenal area before heading to either Mount Juan Antonio, Quepos, or Jaco for fishing. So again, I don't know that person's name, but if you want to get in touch with us, there's a lot of great options. And there was one other question that came in earlier that comes up quite a lot. I'm going to throw it over to you, Kate. If I want to go to Arenal, but I don't want to be surrounded in the larger resorts with loads of people, what is your favorite option for a smaller boutique hotel that tends to be a bit quieter, if there is one?
In La Fortuna.
In the La Fortuna Arenal area.
Okay. So of the hotels in La Fortuna that are going to be like smaller boutique and away from the main jam, sometimes actually don't have hot springs on site. So if that's like a priority,
No, I think they were just interested in understanding. I want to go to a really popular place, but I want a quieter, more romantic experience.
Okay. So for romance, either Nayada or Amor Arenal. Both are really nice properties, more secluded, quiet, peaceful. They are actually has hot springs on site. Amor doesn't, but they have thermal pools. Of course, you can always go to hot springs outside of the properties.
Yeah,
Both are.
Amor Arenal is a good one because it's not
Oof!
Nayada's such a big name, and you've got the 3 properties. Even though it's not claustrophobic, but it's quite close together. I always
Yeah,
find Amor Arenal is quite a nice spot to. It's a bit more relaxed. It doesn't ever
it
feel
is.
like
They only have, is it Jordan, 23 total?
It's pretty small.
Yeah, Orono is great. I would love to go back there. It has beautiful volcano views. It's super boutique, but everything about that place is really great. And then if you wanted to, if you're want something like a little bit more budget friendly, but still very like nature and secluded and romantic, you could go to Chichagua.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Chichagua's a great one. They have a river on site you can swim in. They have trails. They have thermal pools and a regular pool. It's like rustic bungalow styles, but 30 minutes outside of La Fortuna, but still like doable to do like day trips in. Super
yeah,
great.
great.
Um, or you
There's
could stay closer to La Fortuna and do like Las Iguana, which is or Arnall Observatory Lodge, which are going to be like the more budget friendly options. Definitely like more rustic, but you're like right in the park.
a bit closer. Chichago's a good one though. With that destination, you don't find as many people as it tends to be. A little bit
They have
further
hot
out.
springs.
And you have hot springs.
Chichago's also really cool because they have our new jungle tree houses, and lots of people are always asking for tree houses.
And
Chichago's
adult
a great
only.
one for that, and it's a jungle adult only tree house. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like you have your jacuzzi inside of a like man-made tree trunk situation. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's super cool.
Very good. We'll share some links. I've got one more question here before we wrap up. Michelle Hickman, Hickam. Michelle, thank you for your question. Jordan, typical budget for a week's stay? What's the average? Obviously, that's a very difficult question based on what time of year, how many people, where do you want to go, what's your
Yeah.
hotel? But what do we say again as a higher end, luxury agency?
Yeah, I would say for a starting point for, mid, if you're not in high season, if you're coming sort of in a shoulder season, if you want something mid-range, the starting price realistically is around 2,000 US dollars per person per week, excluding the airfare. That's going to get you a pretty solid trip. That's going to include your accommodation, breakfast, a couple tours, and your in-country transportation. That obviously is a very ballpark budget. If you're on a tighter budget, there are options for lower than that, depending on the time of year. And obviously there's a lot more options on the higher end, but that'll, realistically 4K for a couple, for a shoulder season with a pretty comprehensive package in like a 3.5, 4-star hotel is pretty realistic.
Spot on. Guys, thank you very much for your time. We're right on the money there. 12 o'clock midday here in Costa Rica. We're now in the afternoon. Caitlin, Jordan, thank you so much for your time today. I think we've covered just about everything when it comes to off the beaten path trips to Costa Rica. Hopefully people will reach out to you directly if they want to get their vacation to Costa Rica planned very soon as well.
Happy to
Thank
help.
you.
Thanks,
Whatever.
guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll catch you next month in November. So for me and everybody else, hasta la próxima.
Ciao.
Buena vida.
Ciao.